The first time I tried to stop her, I told myself I was helping. I told myself she needed to move on, that the ritual was unhealthy, that we were all being held hostage by a grief that should have ended years ago. But I never told her how many times I had walked past that empty chair in the middle of the night and felt my own throat close up. I never told her I understood why she did it. I was too busy being angry at her for still doing it. 5 years after he was gone. 5 years of setting a place at the table for a son who would never sit there again. And I thought that was a choice she was making. I thought she could have stopped any time she wanted to. I thought grief was something you got over, if you just tried hard enough. I was wrong about all of it. My name is Claire, and I'm the eldest of 3 children. My parents, my mother Eleanor and my father Robert, raised us in a small house outside Dayton, Ohio, in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. My younger brother Daniel was the middle child. My baby sister Sarah was the youngest. And my youngest brother Michael, the one we lost, was the one who held us all together without ever knowing it. He was the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over, the one who called just to hear our voices. When he died, something cracked in our family. We tried to hold it together, but the pieces didn't fit anymore. And my mother went somewhere we couldn't follow. The first Thanksgiving after Michael's death, we tried to do everything the way we always had. My father carved the turkey. My sister brought her famous green bean casserole. I set the table, the same table we'd used for 40 years, the one with the scratch on the corner from when Daniel dropped his baseball trophy. Everything was in its place. Everything was normal. Until my mother walked out of the kitchen with an extra plate. My father saw it first. He froze, the carving knife suspended midair, and I saw the flash of something cross his face. Anger, frustration, despair. He composed himself quickly, but I had already seen it. "Eleanor," he said. His voice was too soft and too sharp at the same time. "Not this year." She didn't look at him. She walked past him to the empty seat at the end of the table, the one where Michael always sat, and she placed the plate down with the same care she might have used to tuck him into bed when he was small. "He's still part of this family," she said. "He will always be part of this family." And no one knew what to say after that. No one wanted to be the one to tell her she was wrong. That was the beginning. But the true unraveling came in the years that followed. By the second Thanksgiving, the ritual had solidified into something unspoken and unbreakable. Every year my mother set the table. Every year she placed Michael's plate at his spot. And every year, someone, usually my father, but sometimes Sarah, and once Daniel, would say something. "Eleanor, don't you think this is?" Or, "Mom, we need to talk about this." Or, "Can we just try 1 year without?" And every year she would look at them with a stillness that was more terrifying than anger. And she would say, "No." Just one word. Just no. My father tried to be patient. He gave her space. He gave her time. But I saw the way his jaw tightened when he looked at that empty chair. I saw the way he turned away when she held that plate too long. And I knew, we all knew, that something was breaking between them that could never be repaired. I was the one who finally broke the silence. I don't remember exactly what I said. I remember the kitchen. I remember the smell of cinnamon and turkey. I remember the way the light came through the window and fell on my mother's face, casting shadows I'd never noticed before. And I remember the words spilling out of me, words I'd been holding in for years. "You're making everyone miserable," I said. "We can't move on because you won't let us. We're stuck in this house with your grief and it's killing us." My father looked away. Sarah started crying. Daniel walked out of the room. And my mother just looked at me with eyes that had no tears left in them. "You think I don't know what I'm doing," she said. "You think I don't know how hard this is for everyone?" Her voice was quiet, too quiet. "I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm choosing, and I would do it again, every single time, for the rest of my life." She walked out of the kitchen, and I didn't follow her. I spent the next year convincing myself I was right. I stopped coming to Thanksgiving after that. I made excuses: work, travel, my husband's family. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I couldn't sit at that table anymore. I couldn't watch my mother place that plate. I couldn't watch my father's face crumble. And I couldn't admit that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who couldn't move on. The distance felt like a relief at first. I called less. I visited less. I told myself it was easier this way, for everyone. And my mother never stopped calling. Her voice was always the same. "When are you coming home?" she would ask. And I would tell her I was busy. I would tell her I couldn't. But I never told her I was afraid. I never told her I was afraid of what I would see if I looked at her too closely. I never told her I was afraid I would fall apart. I didn't go home for 2 years. It was my father who called me. He'd never called me before. That was always my mother's job. So when I saw his name on my phone, I knew something was wrong. "Your mother had a fall," he said. His voice was flat, the way people's voices are when they're trying to hold themselves together. "She's in the hospital. She's been asking for you." I wanted to say something brave. I wanted to say something kind. Instead, I said, "What did she fall on?" There was a pause, a long pause. "She was dusting the chair," he said. "Michael's chair. She fell off the step stool." And that was the moment I realized I had been so angry at her for holding on that I had never stopped to ask why. Why the chair? Why the plate? Why the ritual? Why my mother was willing to lose everyone else in her family just to keep Michael's place at the table. I went to the hospital, and that's when everything changed. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. Hospitals do that to people. They shrink you, flatten you, make you look like a photograph of yourself. She was sitting up in bed when I walked in, her hair thin and white against the pillow, her hands folded in her lap. "You came," she said. And her voice was the same voice she'd used when I was a child, the one that could make everything okay with just a few words. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry." She shook her head. "I don't need you to be sorry," she said. "I need you to understand." She reached for my hand. "I haven't been grieving Michael," she said. "I've been protecting him." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what she was trying to say, but she was looking at me with something in her eyes, something that was almost fear, and I knew that whatever she was about to tell me was going to change everything. She asked me to go to the house. I drove home alone. The house was dark and cold and smelled like dust and grief. I walked into the dining room, and there it was, the chair, Michael's favorite chair. It was tucked under the table, just like always. The seat cushion worn from years of sitting, the wood rubbed smooth from years of use. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know why she had sent me here. And then I saw it, a small crack at the back of the chair, hidden by the fabric, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. I don't know why I reached for it. I don't know why I pulled at the seam. But when I did, something fell out. A handful of folded papers, yellowed with age, covered in my mother's handwriting. I opened the first letter, and I started to read. "My dearest Michael," the first letter began. "It's been 3 years since you left us. I keep thinking about the last time I saw you. The way you smiled, the way you said I love you, Mom, like you knew you wouldn't get another chance. And I think you did know. I think you knew the whole time. You just never told anyone. That was your way. Always protecting everyone else, even when it cost you everything." I read the next letter. And the next. And the next. The words blurred together, each one more heartbreaking than the last. My mother had been writing to him every day for years, writing about her grief, writing about her love, writing about the things she wished she could say out loud. But in the middle of the 5th letter, I found the sentence that stopped me cold. "I found out about you and Daniel," it said. "I found out about what you were protecting him from. And I want you to know, I was never angry at you. I was only ever proud of you." I read the rest of the letters, and when I was finished, I finally understood. Michael had never told anyone, not my mother, not my father, not me, not even Daniel. He had carried a secret to his grave, a secret about what Daniel was doing in the years before he died. Daniel had been struggling, drinking too much, making choices he couldn't undo. And Michael, being Michael, had tried to fix it. He had covered for him. He had lied for him. He had spent the last year of his life protecting his brother from consequences that would have destroyed him. And when Michael died, the only person who knew the whole truth was my mother. She had found out by accident. A note, a clue, a slip of the tongue, and she had spent years trying to protect Daniel's secret, even when the cost of that protection was losing the rest of us. She set the chair every Thanksgiving, not because she couldn't let go, but because she was holding a place for the truth she couldn't tell us. I went back to the hospital the next day, and I sat down beside my mother, and I said the words I should have said 5 years ago. "I understand," I said. "I understand everything." She looked at me, her eyes wet with tears she had been holding back for so long. "You were right," I said. "You were right to keep his place at the table. You were right to hold on. And I was so wrong. I was so wrong to judge you for it." She didn't forgive me right away. She didn't do that thing people do in movies where they smile and say, "Of course I forgive you." Instead, she just looked at me, and she said, "I kept his place because there was nowhere else to put what I was carrying. The chair was the only place I could put it." And then she took my hand, and we sat in silence for a long time, just the two of us, mother and daughter, finally understanding each other. It wasn't a perfect ending, it wasn't a happy one, but it was real, and it was the first time in 5 years that I didn't feel angry at her. I only felt grateful she had loved him enough to hold on. We don't set a place for Michael anymore. That ritual ended the day my mother came home from the hospital, but the chair is still in the dining room. It's still his. And when I walk past it now, I don't feel angry. I don't feel guilty. I feel something else entirely, something I never expected to feel. I feel understood, because my mother was right all along. Grief is not something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And sometimes when the weight is too heavy to bear alone, you need a place to put it. A chair, a plate, a letter written to someone who will never read it. That's not weakness. That's love. Love that refuses to let go. Love that holds on, even when it hurts. Love that sits down at the table, year after year, and waits for the one who will never walk through the door again. I know that now. I only wish it hadn't taken me so long to learn. So I'll ask you the same question I should have asked myself 5 years ago. What are you holding on to that you're too afraid to admit is love?
Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.